folks, and welcome to the Square D, the Jack the Ripper of GAA Analytics. You're very welcome to the season's finale. The professor himself is standing by, Mr. Stephen O'Mara, founder GAA Pro Stats. Stephen, how's she cutting?
Not so bad, not so bad. I'm glad we made it here anyway, because when I saw you, there was me thinking we were out in the fringes, the last of the independents, completely removed from the glamour and glitz of the GAA. And I texted you at 9 o'clock, where are you? You're sitting in a taxi holding two cocktails with a Dublin senior footballer who I won't mention unless
Correct,
you want to.
right. Well, listen, we might have
You're
to call
telling me
in.
where both is. You're telling me where both is.
We might have to call in Dáil privilege here. And not to mention the Romanian taxi driver who was giving us a lesson about the dangers of alcohol. Us coming off a 48-hour safari across every pub in Dublin. But we certainly, as Michael Caine would say, we certainly blew the doors off it. So
we will be neutral affair, of course, here.
Yes. And exactly like everything else, please drink responsibly and all the rest of it, We're probably looking at renaming the show next year to Nostradamus D, or some sort of a... Anyone who tuned in the last few episodes would have obviously got the forecasted prediction of Dublin by 2. You're right again, Professor. You just keep churning out these beauties. We also had Guinea to get 1-1. Not far wrong there either. Not far wrong there either.
I said that's a bit optimistic for all of the final to say it as a standard, but you were bang on that one.
Yeah. I mean, look. I mean that felt like the sweetest win of all. I think that actually trumped 2011, given the levels of tension in the stadium. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it. I mean, people were frazzled. I mean, the outpouring, the cathartic outpouring of emotion at the end of the match was just extraordinary. Extraordinary. Like 2011, there were grown men weeping tears of joy and Kerry men weeping other sorts of tears,
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a PhD in psychology there. I mean, the rationale should be that 11 would have meant much more. But I suppose maybe when you're at the top and then you're, down, beaten in 2 All-Ireland semi-finals by a point, one highly unlikely one at 55 minutes. That's what the player said. If that's what some of them are saying, I'm not going to say any differently. Probably just the nature of appearing to be down and maybe flack in certain corners. Ultimately, as we said, you talk about Nostradamus. I like to think I do have unique data here that really gets under the skin, and we'll come on to 1 or 2 key points. But we had, based on the data, we had said Derry 7-2, was it 5-2 or 7-2? We had it 50-50. It turned out to be we had Dublin Monaghan to be close on 55, but Dublin to obliterate them in the last 15. They did, and against the bookies' odds, we had Dublin at 60-40. That was what my figures were saying. Unless Clifford shot the lights out, we'll do a very specific piece on the mathematics behind that. So look, intriguing. I am proud to say, and it's a mark of pride, because if I can't do it, I probably shouldn't be punting. I did make a profit on my few punts over the year, which would suggest that the data I'm running through GAA Pro Stats is getting the nuance better than Paddy Power's
and again,
system in Dubai.
Similar to drinking responsibly, we do not condone gambling in any way, shape, or form.
Unless you're getting your tips from me.
Correct. Yeah, I heard it here first. Well, listen, I mean, yeah. Oh man, I know my own end. I was there with my father. We've been through many battles with the Dubs over the years and soldiered through, every swing roundabout conceivably possible. There was just something magic, really, about yesterday. But let's get into the teeth of this. Square D expected score graph. This is very, very interesting. We're tracking an expected score of Kerry 3.8 per 10 phases to Dublin's 3.7 per 10 phases. How did Kerry win this? Sorry, how did Dublin? How did Kerry win the expected score and lose?
Is that 48 hours? Is that 48 hours clicking responsibility you've made on?
They won the expected score, right? So
the expected score. That'll mean a lot.
We'll send this down to them now. I'll tell you, down the county board, they can send it around the county, make you feel better.
Look, and I think I can't remember at what point in the game it was, but the expected score per 10 phases was equal. I think the total score per 10 phases was marginally off. The 3 or 4 of them were absolutely dead even. And if I actually counted the last phase, which I don't because the whistle was blown up, it would say expected score per 10 phases 3.7, 3.7. I suppose this just simplifies, and just in the context of the year, Division 1 teams in Championship football have come in at 4.4 points per 10 phases. So as we're going to allude to, this was a defender's game, essentially, or on average. We go back to the 19 finals where the two teams were scoring 4.9 points per 10 phases, if I remember correctly. It's quite low. It's low by Dublin Kerry standards. It's really low by Division. Well, it's lowish by Division 1 standards. But yeah, essentially that graph explains the two key factors in the game. And number one, we'll see total phases Dublin of 46 and Kerry of 43, and that's ultimately the main one. If we look at the shot conversion rate, to take out goal chances, which make that table a bit mathematically complex. Expected score per 10 phases, Dublin are 3.7, but they scored 3.9. Kerry expected score per 10 phases 3.8, total score 3.7. So Kerry have shot marginally under expected score. Dublin have shot marginally over it. Ultimately, that's probably worth a swing at a point, but what's worth a swing and maybe 2 point, another point and a half is that Dublin at 46 phases, Kerry at 43, and they both want to kick out each. So that comes back to the first of the masters that we'll have to have a quick look at here.
Oh yeah. Look at. I mean, it's very funny. All the talk after the match, Mannion obviously stole headlines for the scoring prowess and particularly the vital score down the stretch, and was awarded man of the match based on. We're going to look at this a little bit later on, but I mean, we great see looking right down the pitch, the ideal vantage point. Stephen Cluxton, this fella's getting better, isn't he? He was absolutely imperious yesterday.
As good as he's
talk
been,
about kickouts.
As good as he's always been, and I think apart from maybe 1 year, we probably should have got the All-Star every year, 10 years running. As I've said before, a lot of it is the unseen, but it plays out in the data of kickouts won, lost, and what scores come off them. I mean, even against Louth this year, where Dublin lost a lot of kickouts, they won 5 in the half back line, they scored 1-4 off them. And there's nuance to that. But if we look at this, I mean, that shot map, that's Dublin's kickout map. I mean, it's just incredible. But there's even little detail. There's Kerry's. Now, as it happens, though slightly contradicted my simplistic overview of the game, I get a more complex one now. Dublin actually didn't score off any of those 3 Kerry kickouts that they won, but ultimately, you're looking there. Best laid plans. I've made an error already, but the key here is this table is that not alone did Dublin win 23 out of 23. This table you're looking at, Dublin 1, Kerry 6. That's kickouts won off breaks, which is to say Dublin won 22 out of 23 hands on ball, uncontested, or inside of the boot on ball, but one with Brian Howard where he had to kick it down the wing. Kerry even with their 20 out of 23. And another day you'd be talking about Shane Ryan and how he won the game, because it's really respectable figures as well. But apart from the 3 that were, there was 6 went into the melting pot out of his 23. 1 went into the melting pot out of Cluxton's. And it's really incredible. And you could be forgiven for thinking Kerry kind of gave up the kick out. But if we look here, we'll see they did a really savvy thing. It's a good middle ground offensive thing, which is you're going to get. We're getting 4. This was after a dead ball. We're getting 4 into the full forward line. So we're making you earn that hands on ball. You're not getting a handy one to the D. There's not really anything obvious there. There's one out in the 45, but it's a ropey pocket that they want you to try and hit and get wrong. I mean, look at where the target is. It's that little circle with Stephen O'Brien about 7 yards off it. That's where he's got to hit. Instead, he was banging it into the melting pot. We looked at one or two of these all year. Watch as Howard takes that, how close. I think it's Stephen O'Brien, whoever it is. Watch how close he is. And I mean, as he takes the mark, the Kerry man is actually jumping on top of him. That's how small the margin was. And I think of, and I'm not getting carried away with emotion. I got to cut one or two of the emotional pieces in two now later on. But that, it's possibly his greatest performance ever. It possibly is. It's just, there we are. I mean, look, sorry, we'll come on to that in a minute. But
and not to mention, right? But I mean, even taking the environmental factors of the match, right? I mean, it absolutely, like it was biblical. Rain coming down at different stages of that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Treacherous underfoot conditions, right? Yeah. This was by no means an armchair ride. And this was just, I mean, head and shoulders. I mean, like in terms of sporting icons, goalkeepers in Gaelic football, there's nothing. And the fact that this guy shot the lights out. I mean, fellas saying, "Oh, that's the end of, a certain amount of players now." And I mean, Clarkson will probably go. I mean, like this is like Benjamin Button. This fella's going back in time. He's getting better. I mean, how was he? He can't retire now. It's been 5 years.
If I was a Dublin manager, I'd be counting how many. I'd be getting into the knee and ankle specialist to make sure everything's in order. I'd be looking at another 3, 4, 5 years if I could. Look, the one point I will make on that pass, how short it is, and I don't want to give this any more than 45 seconds. And it's quite divisive. There's often nonsense out there about the standard of GA players compared to soccer players and, international stage. And when you're only playing internally, there's no international comparison and everybody looks like an international star. And that's not to be disrespectful to County Home. But that pass, I look at passes that I remember looking at Dermot Connolly playing Australia, whatever, about the years ago, and he's pinging 45-yard passes to your chest. We're so used to watching that in the Premiership. We think nothing of a lad passing the ball 50 yards cross field with 7-meter wriggle room right on a guy's foot. That's a Premiership standard pass, and he's done it 22 out of 23. Nothing else to be said.
Yeah,
for me, probably, and I'd have to look at every one, but probably the goalkeeping performance of the ages.
Yeah, and you've always look at every episode this year. You've stressed the importance of the short kickouts.
Yeah,
and how key that they are. And ultimately, I mean, this was the winning and losing of this bloody match.
Well, essentially, it was essentially. I mean, we look here. Here's our simple stats. Dublin 23 out of 23, scored 8, conceded 1. Kerry 23 out of 20, scored 1-6, didn't concede any. So ultimately, despite my simplistic overview at the start, which just sort of gives a nice little quick one before we get to complex stuff, Kerry on raw stats got more off their kickouts. And I suppose ultimately, as we look at it, it's a game of small margins. When we look at the first turnover each, we're going to see, and this is only the hands on ball full back line kickouts. Dublin have scored 7-3, conceded on the turnover. So it's a reasonable, moderate, respectable 0.18 per point, 18% of a point per short kick profit. Obviously, Kerry would be up at that. They'd be on 0.19 only for obviously the key element, the goal. They've scored 6 from 16 hands on ball, but they've obviously conceded 3 of the turnover, and also they've conceded that goal. There's only 1 turnover in the opposition half, if I'm not mistaken, or certainly inside the other opposition's 40-65 all game long. And it comes back to that Jurgen Klopp adage. We'll talk about Pascal and how he was maybe somewhat undervalued in his overall contribution. But ultimately, as Jurgen Klopp says, there's no footballer in the world is more dangerous with the defence behind the ball than any professional player with when he makes a high turnover. The high turnover won it. So ultimately, and look, as I say, look, Donegal lost 1 in 14 over, Donaghy got hands on ball and a kick out. If he didn't, on a Durkin kick out, if he didn't, chances are Donegal would have won it. Swings and roundabouts. Not saying Kerry would have won it. It was there, but ultimately the hands on ball short kick out didn't pay dividends for Kerry because they conceded a goal off one, scored 6, conceded 1-3. So that ultimately was actually the winning and losing of the game.
Yeah, and I mean, look, there's essentially, as well as that, there's a bit of an inconvenient truth around the style of this game. I know you tweeted at half-time that Dublin's actual kicking game just wasn't working. It was just a malfunction. That if they slowed it down, put the ball to the hands, Dublin would win this game, right? Talk us through this. Give us a bit more flesh on the bone here on this.
Yeah, I mean, this is the intrigue. And there is an inconvenient truth because when there's some quick transitions and there's some slow transitions, there's some kick pass and there's some hand passes, it kind of goes into the blender and we get a result and we don't tend to necessarily recognize that maybe one team are kicking the ball away or whatnot. We had an explicit piece on Monaghan against Kerry in the second game of the league, and they did change their style significantly. I mean, this table is intriguing, and I suppose the inconvenient truth is that essentially, shall we say, Ulster football, which I'm now calling Connacht football because Galway and Roscommon are probably the outliers with Derry in terms of the extremity of the style. Ulster football or Connacht football, non-Mayo Connacht football, won the day because this is intriguing. If we look at Dublin, the bottom one there, aggressive. Now, say forward kick passes, it's a line breaky kick pass because one of Kerry's forward kick passes is actually technically backwards, I think, for the goal. Yeah. Aggressive forward kick passes, 14 attempts by Dublin, 2 points, 14% score. Now, look,
unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
Because I won't say there's a myth, because when Dublin kick ball, now it's a wet day, I have to say that. When Dublin kick ball on dry day against most teams, they make massive hay off it. But up against a team almost as athletically good as them, defenders who I would have questioned during the year, to give them their dues, maybe they weren't generally buoyant to not being added or sharp, but they performed definitely much better in the last 2 games than they had up to that. But now, again, in a single game, expected score is a better reader than actual score. I mean, if Conor Callahan's goal goes in, all of a sudden that figure jumps up. If Geeney's goal doesn't go in, Kerry's jumps down. But expected score, Dublin, aggressive forward kick passes is 14% score ratio, 23 expected. Through the hands, now bear in mind, I've got to take out Pascal's in a minute, but it's 1-9 from 22. But even take out the high turnover, it's still 9 from 21. I'm putting myself on the spot mathematically here. Is that 45 or 46 odd percent? Thereabouts. They've got a 55% through the hand. So essentially, even taking out that, they're 3 times higher through the hands. Even taking expected score into account, taking out Pascal's, they're still 1.5 times higher through the hands than forward kick passes. Whereas Kerry, I suppose, more the masters of that kicking game. And I've still maintained this is the evidence that Kerry are technically the best footballers in the country. They've scored 10 from 30 through the hands. Notably, they've scored 1-2 from 9 with aggressive forward kick passes, or slightly backward ones in the case of the goal. It's 1-2, but again, the expected score, whether it scored a goal or not, it's 38% compared to 23%. And I think that's really, really intriguing. And it does allude to what I think, that Kerry still have the best technical players in the country, but Dublin have the best athletes and maybe systematically, structurally in the post-Gavin era. Just a quick look at 1 or 2 of them. Here's Lee Gannon, lovely bit of a breakaway. I'll hit a 40-yard ball. I mean, it's going into the melting pot there. Suffice to say, with all the boys on the ground, Kerry man picks it up. We see it here again. Davy Byrne comes out just before half-time after shipping the goal. You know, that's sort of maybe not the best decision ever. As we'll see, you know, where he's kicking the ball, there's, suffice to say, I haven't marked that as a possession loss against, I think it's Conor Callahan.
Oh, yeah.
There's a sweeper underneath him. Saying that, to give it the full story, this is an aggressive forward kick pass from Lee Gannon into Conor Callahan. He catches it. We all know what's going to happen next. But again, even within that, it's still a 1.2 points expected score. I mean, it's a really difficult goal shot. So the expected score plays itself out. And I suppose just to say this, and part of the discussion in the second part of the show, in terms of Kerry, say forward as inverted commas, aggressive line breaking kick passes, I will say that, and there's a lot of hyperbole either way around David Clifford. We're going to give the science, I'm going to say, the certain maths, the statistical maths around it. But this kick pass is as good. The only other kick pass I can remember of this caliber is Colin Cooper's setup for the goal in 2013. This is phenomenal.
No, hang on. Just to correct you on that, Dermot Connolly's pass to Dean Rock in the 2017 All-Ireland final.
I was
Still the greatest kick pass ever.
There's probably a few Connollys in there to compete. Regardless, you've got your Dublin hat on. I won't argue because I know specifically, I remember generally. But if we look at this, we see it's not just he gets the ball to Geaney. It's the fact that that circle, that little white circle, or the general environs of it, that's the only place he can deliver that kick pass for Geaney to win it goal side, heading towards goal before Cluxton comes out. I mean, it's we're going to go into this in more analytical data. There probably is no other footballer in the country can do this kind of kick pass as much as Clifford. Whether there's value in that consistently over the long term, we'll come on to later on in the show. But you see where he caught that ball. So that's the comparison. The kicking game ultimately raw score.
Yeah, sorry, a bit of a Stuart's inquiry here. The position of Dublin defender.
I meant to cut it. I meant to cut it, and I was looking at this in the actual replay saying Davy Bird has what, 7 All-Ireland? Was this his 8?
Yeah.
Whatever amount he has. I think this was 8. That schoolboy defendant. I haven't clipped it here.
His trousers down there in a big way.
I'll tell you he wasn't. And I haven't got the images to show you. His man marking position was perfect. There's a half second. I actually had meant to clip it and I didn't. Geaney cut him across the imaginary line. And turned his body and then got across it. It was a moment of brilliance. It's a 60-40 moment of brilliance from Clifford and Geaney. 60 Clifford, 40 Geaney, the whole package. The move to lose Byrne was exceptional. I can't show it to you. I don't have it prepared. But it was, trust me, it wasn't the schoolboy defendant. It looks like in that still slide. His man marking was brilliant. Don't argue. You haven't looked at it like I have. Trust me. He takes him. I'll try and do here. Byrne is marking him correctly. This is mirror imaging. Byrne is marking him correctly. He cuts this way to turn his body a little bit, and then he goes back inside him. Half second.
Look at it. It's only a 20-yard pass across the field. Will you go on out of that? Jesus, tonight. You'd swear Zinedine Zidane after popping up here. If you can't kick that, so you may as well throw your hat at it. Jesus, tonight, right? Let's look in, okay? We're next up. The blanket defense and how it played out was always going to be interesting. Would they go man on man? Would they go blanket, tag a man +1? Would they try a sweeper type scenario? Give us the data here on the blanket. Yeah. How did Dublin do into the blanket? We said before, both Dublin and Kerry both had their struggles into a blanket. Did anything change here the weekend?
Dublin, I don't think really. More Kerry had their struggles into a blanket. I suppose a couple of key points on it. And as I look at it, I'm half remembering a piece I meant to clip, but I can go back. There's a nuance I can go back to. Yeah, look, I often now, just for the little nuances, when I put these tables up on Twitter as of the last few weeks, there's a new feature in my software. I often mold blanket and +1 as the same thing, but to just be more specific, there's less to read. There is a significant nuance difference between them. A +1 could be a 4v5, whereas a blanket is, an 12v11 or a 10v10 inside the 45 or whatnot. But if we look at it here, and this was one of the metrics, when I said 60-40 Dublin, one of the metrics that I did have was that Dublin had a marginally higher on everything. Dublin had a marginally higher figure on everything. And blanket defences was one of them. Didn't play out. So I can't take 100% Nostradamus kudos. I could have got away with it. If we see here, Dublin into a blanket, 6 from 19. 6 turnovers, so the raw score of 32%, expected score almost identical. Kerry, very notably, it's 110 into 26, and it's a 50% score ratio, 46% expected score. So that really flipped. Now, what's notable, there's a couple of things here notable. let's look. Firstly, look, obviously Dublin aren't studying the game today. They're studying whatever was in your right and left hand in the taxi.
They're studying the ingredients of pina coladas. I'll tell you, flat.
But what's notable is this was a slow build-up play for Kerry, and Dublin will have a +1. And I think when we look at why Kerry had more joy into that, and I haven't done it forensically, but I suspect it may well be because some of Dublin's blanket defences were actually, they were man-on-man blankets, which is to say a lot of bodies back, but no +1. But, you know, for me, I would presume what they're looking to do here is get the man on the white arrow to tuck in and the man on the yellow arrow from the weak side to get in. You see Clifford with the hands up, like this is Christmas, man on man, no sweeper. So I think that may, without having had the time to go through it entirely, that may have been a factor. I think that was just a lapse by Dublin, but there was a number of them. Because you see here, Davy Byrne on the arrow, he's looking not nobody of danger. Paul Murphy, I think, or Gavin White in the yellow arrow, he's out far away. So Byrne is back as a sweeper. And, you know, here it kind of ties in with, you know, David Clifford does exactly what I said he should. Sucks in 3 Dublin defenders before he flicks it back out. But ultimately, as is a Jack Barry, looks like he's about to shoot. Nice flick ball back into Jack Barry, position to shoot. Who's out? It's Davy Byrne, and that's what ultimately led to that turnover there. So I think it may be more to do with Dublin not getting their +1 than Kerry actually doing something massively different. Can't say that for certain.
I'm going to say to you, right? The one I'm going to say to you about, like, I mean, we noted Kerry before, and obviously Paddy Tally is down there and how they were set up, and we had a few features about that technically. Whilst Kerry were often very well set up, their individual technical expertise at defending was still somewhat fragile, right?
Can be.
The one thing I'd say to you, right, about the game, was this for me was like guts wise, right? Of all the years looking at Kerry coming to Croker, right? This was the gutsiest defensive performance I've ever seen in Kerry. They threw bodies. There was absolute, like, I mean, it was carnage back there. There was literally bodies on the line all the time.
I can't argue with you. I mean, look, ultimately, I want to say this first. I don't want to disparage a good defensive performance. And Ty Morley gave an exceptional defensive performance. Not sure was the juice worth the squeeze to take him out. Well, it probably was to take him out sweeping from 6, which is what he's been doing. But he had an exceptional defensive performance. Caught man-on-man twice with O'Callaghan. And even though, look, O'Callaghan might have scored the goal, he still made it very hard. Another one, he forced him over the end line. And that's worth pointing out. They've kept Dublin to 3.9 points per 10 phases. That's lower than average for Dublin, so you've got to give it credit. I would say, as Jack Charlton always said about David O'Leary, you never see him because his position was so good, or the Paul McGrath, or both. But to just give one key point, if I was to sum up what I've been saying about blanket defence and zone,
there's no way Jack Charlton would have said that about Dave O'Leary, considering he didn't play him.
Well, he had a good relationship for a few years, but anyway, and the Italians say it all the time. The Italians said it about Maldini. If I could sum up what I've been saying about blanket defences all year, right, it's this, is we've been talking about trapping fellas down the line. And if you see the angle that Mick Fitzsimons is taking here, what would most defenders do? What would all defenders have done 2-3 years ago and forevermore before that? They'd have turned Clifford back out the way. But the statistical dynamics have changed. The teams are so good at being patient and breaking lines from the outside. They're now saying, nah, I'm not letting you keep safe hands on ball. Kerry have been the masters of it the last 2 years. Dublin have been doing it a good bit. Now, I suppose I would always, generally it's not necessarily a club level because clubs aren't that good at breaking blanket defences compared to county. But if you were doing that, I would always have a list of guys, nah, you don't try and pin him in. You let him back out the way. Dublin may have made an error here. I would have had a list. Shawnee O'Shea, David Clifford, you don't try and pin those boys. You turn them back out the way. So they've taken a gamble here. And that is the flip side. We're trying to trap him. But Fitzsimons couldn't let him back out the way, recycle, safe thing. Generally, what I'd probably encourage most club defenders to do. But Dublin tried to pin him in. Again, I'm talking there. There's meant to be a slide up. You see it here. There's that brilliant pass again. Fitzsimons tries to pin him in.
Yeah.
And the gamble doesn't pay off. But a couple of them did. There was 2 before that did, or 1 before, 1 after that did. So that's the gamble of modern football. It was perfectly illustrated. with that goal by Kerry. But yeah, ultimately, while the blanket defence may have done it for Kerry, as we're going to move on, it still ultimately wasn't the key factor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But Mick Fitz is still a Rolls Royce player. The interesting thing was, like, I mean, the hype and all the mad. I know we're going to get into that a little bit later, but I mean, even the Indo. Right, talk about everyone getting carried away with this sort of Clifford mania thing, right? And we tried to take, in most respectful manner possible. We felt over the years this madness of the Kerry being a one-man team was so highly disrespectful to the rest of the Kerry players. Like, you're looking at quality all over the field, and yet the mainstream media was just writing this mad rhetoric that this is the David Clifford show and he's carrying this team on his back, which was hugely disrespectful towards the rest of the players. The Indo, right, even ran a piece. Okay, you probably saw this on Sunday about his kicking position, and that when he finishes his kick through, right, that his boot is at 6'9". And in actual fact, right, it was factually incorrect. And the reason for that was, and he go into his body position, right, the way he actually leans back so he can kick over the defender's head and they break it all down with this kick. When they actually looked at it, the actual caption, the photograph they took, was actually Clifford hitting a free. He wasn't actually.
Yeah,
you did go, but this was the mayhem. And I mean, look at you flagged it before. He's a game like this, two in every three phase. But look, I know we're on the Mick Fitz thing. We'll delve in a little bit deeper in the.
Look, let me just actually, I meant to lead on to, I got myself slightly muddled there. Before we do, and absolutely, I'll make comment on that in a second. What I do want to point out is ultimately here, the key table, we had it up already. But whereas Kerry were better into the zonal defence or the blanket defence, which wasn't a pattern that had played out all year, what actually ultimately won this game, and this also may be an inconvenient truth to the Pat Spillans and the Joe Brollies of the world. But if we look at this table, Kerry scored 110 from 26 into a blanket. Man on man, 11. They scored 1. Now expected that's 9%. Expected score 30%, but an expected score of 46 into a blanket defence. What ultimately won the game is the fact that Dublin got man on man 20 times, which is too much in my opinion, and they scored 8 points. And if you want to look at the score that essentially, apart from the high turnover for Pascal, obviously, it's this. We've looked at this phase from a defensive point of view. We're going to look, here's Dublin again, man on man. Really shouldn't be, I would say. But to look at the whole phase, how do they manage? Because lads come off other men, which is gambly if you don't know what you're doing. You see here, Howard tries to come off the man. See here, Merchant does come off the man, makes a turnover. But this is the move. If I could sum up this All-Ireland final in one slide, apart from Pascal's high turnover, it's ball dropped, Con O'Callaghan in the hands, through the hands, man on man. That's what won the game for Dublin. When you look at those tables, they're the two big outlying figures. O'Callaghan, what does he do? Does he try a lovely kick pass 40 yards? Through the hands. Straight to Pascal. It's now, you can see Morley there, makes it man on man. What does he do? He carries. What does he do? He gives the ball to Paul Mannion through the hands. What does Mannion do? He kicks it over. So I suppose I just wanted to make that's the two big figures Dublin have that Kerry don't have.
Besquell was bloody phenomenal, wasn't he?
Well, let's go on to that. Look, you raised the question. I don't get into all that. And look, I suppose relative to the mainstream media, I've been quite critical of. Critical is probably the wrong word, but I haven't bought into a lot of the hyperbole around David Clifford. And I've deliberately acknowledged that kick for that goal because he can do things that at this point in football, the 99 percentile stuff he can do better than anybody. And there's no doubt in that. But what we're going to look at, and we talk about Pascal, and and listen, I'm going to give you data here. Some of this is somewhat uncomfortable viewing for a lot of, shall we say, the rhetoric out there. But this is fact. This is my opinion. And a key point that people miss out with Pascal. Let's get some charts up here now. You're gonna have to keep me honest on this because because I'm going to share the whole screen and I can't see you and me. So if I'm offside
That's
anywhere,
not always a bad thing.
uh, if I'm offside anywhere, do let me know, because I need to get.
Because I mean, just one thing, right? It is very, very important to note in all this is that there's a huge human factor that is perhaps not as widely known, but like the Cliffords themselves, I mean, God love them, have had a horrific few years. His uncle Barry passed away, the great Barry Clifford, fantastic stalwart down in Kerry, and then the heartbreak of that. Then this year, David's grandmother and then his mother Ellen passed as well. Which that coupled with this extraordinary, you know, like hype juggernaut that has kind of come his way, and
yeah,
oft times I fear an aftermath as well.
yeah. Look,
It
it's
just
not.
doesn't tally, you know.
I think, and I won't say who, but my brother was gigging down in Kerry after the '09 Dublin Kerry massacre, and he happened to end up be in the same hotel as the Kerry players, and one of them made the point coming back, and I want to keep most of the data here, but one of them who had got awful stick in the media in the run up to that game, and nicely quiet in the game, made the point. I have to go to work. I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I have to go to work in the morning. I'm not a professional footballer, and I think that's a point that we shouldn't forget. And in whatever way, look, obviously, I give data that probably nobody has, and it doesn't always reflect on what people want to believe or
Yeah,
is believed, but there's a way of delivering it, maybe. And yeah, it's that build them up to break them down. I've never built up Conor or David Clifford to the level that a lot have, and I do think it is going to show it, and we're going to go through a lot of stuff. We're going to spend. We haven't put this up before. We're going to go through some real football nuance. If you want a real picture of who did what in the football game, I'm going to show it to you. And we'll go to Dublin first. We'll finish on Kerry because it alludes to a key point that I've made. But got to talk through this first. Let's start with Dublin. Are we up there? Can you see this?
yeah,
chart?
yeah. No,
Right,
we're
okay.
1,000,000%.
I'm going to talk you through it because there's a load of numbers.
There's a lot of numbers here,
I'm
Professor.
going to talk you through it.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, I'm going to put it up for any real nerds out there. I'm going to put this up. So what I have here, there's an orange number on the right. Now, I'm going to give a caveat with this. The Moneyball figures are coming afterwards. But this is your raw touches with the ball. And this is a system. I haven't given that much thought to it. But it gives, I think it's 1 point for a neutral play, 2 for a moderately positive. I think it's 4 or 5 for a line break. It's -8 or 9 for a turnover. Is it whatever for a point? I don't know. It's not a perfect table. General idea of the football performance on the day. Don't hold me to these numbers. It's a general overview. It also doesn't give credit for assists, which it should,
Yeah.
which would. But that's in the Moneyball table. I'm going to go on to afterwards. Just go through this from top to bottom. Dublin, Stephen Cluxton, 7. Oh, and again, you can get minus numbers on this. And I don't want to be. I'm not disparaging anybody. It's just the way the numbers ran on the. This is a table in my software. I'm not apologising for it. This is what came out. Stephen Cluxton, 7. This is from play. Owen Merchant, 4. Mick Fitzsimons, 9. Davy Byrne, -13. There's 4 turnovers there. Caveat 1, I think, was Davy Byrne. It was off camera. I could be doing him a disservice. That could be a -3 or so. James McCarthy, 10. Again, worth pointing that out. Of as much regard from as everybody else does, but maybe a slightly emotive man of the match because of the warrior he is. John Small, 10. Lee Gannon, 3. Brian Fenton, 76. 29 touches, 13 neutral, 5 moderately positive, 9 line breaks, not a single turnover. Brian Howard, 49. Paddy Small, 39. Paul Mannion, 22. 4 points, but 5 turnovers or wides. Kieran Kilkenny, 54. Cormac Costello, -7. Colin O'Callaghan, 10. Colin Pascal, 26. But again, if you give the credit for the turnover and the assist, that's up higher. McCaffrey is 17, which would be one of the highest in the team, minute per minute ratio. Tell me, do you get my goals and points table here? Can you see?
Yes.
Have I changed tables? Okay. Again, I give credit to the man fouled for the free. not the man who scored the free. And any outliers here, Fenton, 2 points, 1 assist, no turnovers or wides. Mannion, obviously, there's those 4 points, but there's 3 misses and another 1 or 2 turnovers elsewhere. And subtly there, Colin Pascal, 3 points, 1-2 assisted, and only 1 miss. So they're probably the outliers. And now we're going to go into my very favorite table. Is there a matrix of numbers in front of you?
You've got it.
Right. Now, if you've got absolutely nothing to do for a full week of your life, feel free to study this. I put up a tweet earlier and got 5,500 views, and 12 people have viewed this table. So I'm probably, I should probably leave this down, not to lose my audience. But
what's very important here, right? What is very important is what we're measuring is essentially like the horsepower of a car. We're measuring the effectiveness, right, pound for pound per player, right?
Yes.
And that is what these tables are looking to show, to see in a certain game how effective, who are basically the game changers, as opposed to
what it does. Listen, so I'm putting up. I can measure this in various ways. This is automatically logged in my software. I log the possessions. This is more or less mathematical fact, notwithstanding there's a judgment call on who's at fault for a turnover sometimes, the passer or the receiver. It could be a grey area sometimes. But notwithstanding that human element in it, this is mathematical fact. Over the course of numerous games, this gives you knowledge you can't have any other way. Over the course of the game, it's completely random, and I have to apologise. I obviously did my general stats in real time. I was operating my possession stats off a screen recorder because I live in the sticks. It froze a few times, so my expected scores aren't correct on this, so I'm not going into them. Last 3 possessions. Now, there's a key point in this, a key point in football. You've got to weigh up what you score to take it to the nth degree. If I score 5 points in a game, we can't say that's good or bad, because you have to weigh it up against what I turned over or what got turned over the next phase of my play. 5 points isn't good if I kick the ball away 20 times. 5 points is good if I kick the ball away once. That's a general introduction. Look at the big one. Let's ignore lads with 1 touch to their hands. Colin Pascal, or Pascual, if we're to give it the correct Spanish pronunciation. 10 phases through his hand. Okay, only count the last 3 touches. Pascual 1-6 from 10, 90%. And the real outlier, if we go over this figure here, is Dublin scored 3.5 times more when the ball went through Pascual's hands compared to not. He was, him and or Stephen Cluxton, man of the match, without question. Now, bear in mind, I've no defensive stats in this, which are half the equation. But looking at it offensively, Dublin scored 9 points from 26 phases that didn't. Sorry, 9 points from 35. 26% when it didn't go through Pascal. 90% when it did. They scored 3.5 more through Pascual's hands, or even 2.72 if we count every score as one. Few subtle ones. Paddy Small, 1-2 from 8. Obviously, look, Pascual is all over that goal. Slightly looking for Paddy Small, but look, he's in there. John Small, 4 from 7. Sorry, I didn't bring up the other table. 3 assists. And what do we know? The old dogs for the hard road. Kieran Kilkenny, 5 from 9. The guy who only hand passed the ball sideways, apparently. Kilkenny, 5. And Dublin have scored 1.82 more when it went through Kilkenny's hands than not. That's not including the goal, which obviously massively put up the figures of. Sorry,
yes,
the goal was 1 because that played with the figures. Let's give Pascual his credit for that. But taking that out, Kilkenny always. There's never been a game of maybe 15 games of analysis, probably 12, 13 in Dublin, 1 or 2 in Castleknock. Always consistent. Even on a supposedly bad day, Conor O'Callaghan, 4 from 8. He got fouled for a free. Morley had to put a ball out for a 45 that was scored to avoid him getting it. And he gave a really subtle assist in around 55, 60 minutes. So he's still on a bad day, didn't do badly. So they're your key men for Dublin. Obviously, again, if you outline, I mean, Brian Howard is 2 from 13, but he's higher than average shots. If I had my expected score, I go through that.
So just give me this for a second, right? If I
I've got to take it every, if you give me one.
I know what you're
point,
going to do, but hang on now,
Go on.
right?
Yeah.
Just on the base of this, right, I'm going to throw one at you now, right?
Will I keep it up?
If I gave, keep it up, yeah.
Yeah.
If I was to give you, right, let's say
Yeah.
Augustus Gloop got the keys to the chocolate factory,
Yeah.
right? I give
We've
you
only got 10 to 15 minutes max left on this, so don't go too much.
Three players,
yeah,
right, from that Dublin team.
Yeah.
Give me who are the three most important players.
The same ones I wrote in an
Dublin
article.
team.
The same ones I wrote in an article in 2017. The 5 players Dublin can't be without. 1, 2, 3, and it's played itself out here again. Stephen Cluxton, Kieran Kilkenny, and Brian Fenton. They're the 3. Obviously, Basquel on the day was, but those 3 are constant. And I forgot to mention in Cluxton's 22 out of 23 hands and ball kickouts, he also kicked 2 45, 50-yard frees out of 2.
Yeah.
They're the 3. And they're the guys. And when I wrote that article, number 4 was Connolly. Put Con O'Callaghan in there. Would I have him ahead? Would I have him ahead of Kilkenny or Fenton? Maybe. They're the men. The figures played out week in, week out. They are the men. Again, lies, statistics, and what's the expression? I'm sure you'll have it better than me. Just a shout out for one of the gentlemen.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Yeah.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. If I click last 4 possessions, the 4th one, depending on the move, can be more or less significant. But the gentleman of the game, Sean McMahon, Coachman Raheny, an absolutely phenomenal guy. Now, that was a take away from Howard and Fenton, who were national legends.
Showed well when he came on.
Well, look, last 4, when we clicked the last 4 possessions, he actually comes in on 2 from 2. So he was the tertiary assist for the 2 phases he was involved in the last 4 touches when he came on. Sitting on the lines a long time.
He is.
Personally, I've been as happy for anybody ever to win anything. A great guy. Sat there, got about his business, kept the head down. I think he was off. He must have been off the panel when I coached Raheny in 18 because he was in with the club team. But came on, key factor, 100%. So if I wanted to give the last 4 phases there, McMahon, he's not on the top on alphabetical order, I think, but he should be because Cluxton, Scully, Murphy all have 1 touch and 1 score. McMahon has 2 and 2 scores.
Okay. So if you're still with us, if you're not dead after trying to digest all that, that's some serious Moneyball numbers. I don't think
we've only done Dublin so far. We've only done Dublin so far.
Yes, talk about saving the best wine for last. Look at this is heavy jelly here, folks, in terms of getting through this, right? But what it does actually do, and there's no hiding, there's no escaping the facts here, right? Of because this is a pattern that has been seen not just on Sunday, but over a period of time. And so when we get these net output figures for effectiveness on each of these players, right? This data has been basically compiled over a series of years, and hence why we're getting the actual facts of who are the lead performers. So on that note, let's see the Kerry lads.
Look,
might be worth noting that of all the Square D analytics to date, nobody down in Kerry has retweeted you. Not sure if you got in a drunken brawl on one of your holidays down there, but
sure, what would Kerry lads be doing this as a Dubs talking about football? I think I told you before. I met a gang very briefly. We're under time constraints, but I think I mentioned this before. Met a gang of dead sound Kerry lads in Poland in 2012 at the Euros. And we got chatting. I was sitting on my own and they came over. We were chatting anyway. And I got an almighty compliment that night. This obviously was when Dublin have won All Ireland the previous, 20 years or 15 years. Jesus, you're the first Dub I've ever met who doesn't talk pure shite about football. that was the ultimate compliment I got from a Kerry man. But on that note, look, I'll tell you what I got.
He obviously hasn't tuned in for the last 23 episodes. I'll tell you one thing. He might be changing his view there, I can tell you.
Look, I'm gonna go straight here to. I gotta go off that numerical chart because there may be a bit of grim reading, and I want to be able to stand over this as factual science, because you could argue with how I weight turnovers and la 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 la. But if I'm gonna get this up on the screen again. Again, you're the captain of the ship here now for a minute, because I
How do you mean for a minute?
So there's our goal.
Steer us towards the rocks once again.
Again, look, outliers, whatnot. Who we got? Sean O'Shea, 2 points, 2 assists, 1 miss. Stephen O'Brien, 2 points, 1 assist, no misses. Paddy Clifford, 3 points, 2 assists, no misses. David Clifford, the obvious conversation point. Sorry, Paul Geaney, 1 an assist, 2 misses. David Clifford, the obvious talking point. 3 points, 1 assisted, 5 misses. And that really comes down, I suppose, to the really key element here. And I'm going to sum up how and why we essentially had this absolutely spot on in the preview. But again, the David Clifford conversation is emotive, and there doesn't tend to be that much balance in it. And we've got to be fair here. And this alludes exactly to what I said before the game. And I said before the game that it's a 60-40 game based on the patterns, unless David Clifford shoots the lights out. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a second. But if we see here, to give David Clifford his dues, that moment of magic has made his figures quite respectable, notwithstanding the fact that there were a large number of turnovers. From 15 phases through his hands in the last 3 touches, he still scored. He's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. He still scored 1-4, or there's still 1-4 has come from those phases, 47%. It's not bad. It's not bad. And if we look here, Kerry have scored 1.24 more that went through his hands on that. Now, a full forward would want to be higher than that, but it's not a disastrous game. It's not an amazing game. It's slightly lower than average for a full forward. Let's look at Kerry on the whole. A few surprises here. Maybe Paul Geaney, 1-3 from 8, 75%. Darren Moynihan, I taught this during the game and played out in the figures. 1-3 from 10, 60%.
Oh, yeah.
80% shots.
Moynihan had an absolute beezer of a game.
Expected score would probably be even better, but it's 80% shots through his hands on the last 3 touches from 10 phases. Shawnee O'Shea, identical to Conor O'Callaghan. Interestingly, 4 from 8, 50%. Paddy Clifford normally will be higher, 5 from 11, 45. Right, that's it. Now, I'm going to put one thing up here. Ignore the operation I'm doing on the screen if you see it, because it's just my way to get first and second half data. Now, here we are now. Let's go back to what I said before the game. Based on the metrics, it's a 60-40 game it's a 60-40 game unless David Clifford shoots
the lights out.
Now, let's look at the data on this. And shoot the lights out. Bear in mind, to get a goal or an assist, especially if you pull it a rabbit from a hat, which Clifford and Geaney did, that constitutes shooting the lights out. That has the same value or more value than kicking 3 outlandish points in 3 plays in a row. Okay? First half, 7 phases through Clifford's hands, 1-2, 71%. When it didn't go through his hands, 2 points from 11, 18%. So Kerry scored 3.9 more through Clifford's hands than not. That was the first half. I said it's 60-40 unless Clifford shoots the lights out. Clifford essentially shot the lights out, and Kerry won that half by a point. Second half, again, ignore the operation I'm doing. It just gets me my first half, so my second halves. Second half, Clifford had the lower end of that erratic scale. It's 2 from 8. A lot of turnovers, a lot of turnovers, a lot of misses. Okay, so and Dublin win that half by 3 points. That's bang on statistically what I said. Just to get this, and I actually haven't, last 2 possessions, which literally is scores, assists, turnovers, or touches before turnovers. And it's the same. It's 2 from 8 for Clifford. So essentially, there's probably 6 turnovers or misses there on Clifford. What I want to point out here, and one of the reasons, apart from just being a religiously data analytical guy, to back up the discussion with fact, I think it's extremely disingenuous to this bunch of Kerry players to suggest they're being carried by David Clifford. And once again, the data suggests, what did Kerry do when ball didn't go through David Clifford's hands in the second half? As a test of the ability of the rest of the team, it was poor in the first half. It was 2 from 11, but in the second half, and it was the same readout in the 2 games into the 2019 final, we'll see Kerry have scored 7 points from 13 where it didn't go through Clifford's hands in the last phases. That's 54%. Now, if Kerry had scored that ratio in the second half, they'd have won the game. So this idea that Kerry are being carried by Clifford, it's terribly disingenuous to the rest of the team. And in fact, if we look at all touches, whatnot, it's still 45% for Kerry, which is higher than what they scored throughout the game. So I suppose, look, that's a key point for me. And I'm going to tell you, with 3 minutes, with 5 minutes to wrap her up. And I do want to go on to my favourite man before I go. So we're going to say 7 minutes to wrap it up. Yeah, that's the data. That's how it is. It was going to rely on that Clifford magic. Came in the first half, did in the second half. Give me Conor O'Callaghan any day, who even on a bad day has respectable figures. Kieran Kilkenny, who's always there. And before we do our final pieces, you might give me the quick chance to continue my love affair of all things Kieran Kilkenny football.
Yes, exactly. The amazing thing is, having observed from all through the league games and everything like that, exactly what metrics were going to be the outliers, and ultimately the destination of Sam Maguire. It's extraordinary to see it all. Opening the matrix, really. And in terms of the facts analysis, I mean, it is quite stunning if you can get your head around it, that GAA, Gaelic football, can be moneyballed. No question about it. It speaks for itself, The Kieran Kilkenny, right?
Yeah, before we move on, and again, when I put up those tables, what I have to explain is a lot of those figures, on the whole, most of those figures are around what I'm seeing in general. Fenton generally has the highest raw stats, generally in the higher echelon of the phases through his hands to score, but generally not as high as Kilkenny. Kilkenny up there is the constant of constants. And I suppose just a quick look at why it divides the country. But again, the data's here. It's always high. It goes from high to exceptionally high. Here, Howard kicks it down the line. Looks like that nice chance to get Kerry on the back foot, which didn't really work when they kicked the ball throughout the game for the most part. Tried to break the line. See the pressure exerted. Even forced a hand pass back. Kilkenny's there. Again, what do most lads do here? They try the low percentage shot under pressure. It's maybe a 45, 50% shot. Kilkenny, that's it. Drops the shoulder, brings it back out, gives that hand pass at the last second to suck the last bit of Kerry man across. Sweeper now out of position. What do we see? Howard gives the hand pass. He knows the crack. Kilkenny's
over it goes.
Over it goes. He's pointing. What's coming? Man on the far side, I think it's Lee Gallen knows the crack. I've crept up late now. Kilkenny set it all up. I think it's got McCarthy maybe. I think it's Gallen comes in. All of a sudden it goes from a 45, 50% point shot to a 70, 75% point shot. That sums up why Kilkenny is always high up on those figures. Here we are, turnover. I think it's level scores. Do we get excited? No. Why? Kilkenny's had a look in that sector when there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Dublin men, and I'm 7. There's only 4 Kerry. Is there any point in rushing the ball forward? Nah, the hands up. Slow her down, boys, as Pep Guardiola calls it. La pausa, the pause. If it's not on, pause it. Stop it. Slow it down. He just starts walking as if to emphasise, not as if to emphasise the points of the Dublin, as Pep Guardiola calls it. It's La pausa. And here we are. 68.5 minutes. Kerry are trying to press a free. It's the worst place in football. You've got a free at corner back. There's a delay. The opposition are set up. Someone's gone in there to mark the goalkeeper. I'll give you one guess who comes short for the free. And that's not even measured in those stats that I've shown you. And there's that quintessential. If Clifford has the kick where the boot comes up and it's a fantastic technique, there's the Kilkenny hand pass. And I couldn't pass up Dublin's record winning All-Ireland for some of the individuals without pointing out that Dublin have never lost a championship match with Stephen Cluxton and Kieran Kilkenny on the field together.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, Kilkenny's fitness is just, I mean, he's just from another planet. Like, I mean, you see the guy moving, and I mean, he's a damn big unit, you know.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of him to mobilize around the place. I mean, this guy is just a unicorn, you know. He really is. I mean, in the pantheon of great players, very unique.
To give you an anecdote,
and
we are really running out of time, but to give you, which may or may not be true, but I believe, and there's very little come out of the Dublin camp, but I believe that when they made the decision after Lee Keegan man-marked him out of his game controller role in the middle third or more long distance, and he went centre forward, I believe he put on muscle in his legs to affect the type of running he would be doing in games, which is shows you the level of sports S&C or sports science, strength and conditioning there is. But that's him. As I say, Cluxton, Kilkenny, they're 1 and 2, and for me then O'Callaghan and Fenton. I couldn't decide that earlier on, but as I've done that piece, slightly emotive, I'm going to definitely say Kilkenny.
Yeah, magic. That's absolutely cracking stuff. Come here, there's one very special guy, right, who has been involved from the inception of the Square D, the great Paddy McGill. We're wrapping up, obviously, this season. Do you want to say a few words about this?
Yeah, just
fantastic Donegal.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Look, a mutual acquaintance put us in contact at the start of the year, so didn't know from Adam at the start of the year. Real pro, obviously has his own show in Donegal, so he showed me the ropes and helped me through the early stages. He's a 3-year-old kid, a year and a half ahead of me. I presume it's all ahead of me. He was meant to do the show this week, I kind of penciled him in, but once again, the work and 3-year-old at home got the better of him. Hence, I've pulled you away from your double cocktail taxi rides. But yeah, no, huge thanks to Paddy. Really, really top job during the year, and hugely grateful that he came in on short notice and got general dogs bodied around by the amateur.
Yeah.
While the pro led the show from day one.
Yeah. No, chalk it down. Massive thanks. Fair play to you, Paddy, you boy. And you hit the nail on the head there. Like, obviously coming off a 48-hour session. Exactly like man up from the gods is O'Mara decides to wheel out the heavy artillery for the most statistically laden show in the history of podcasts, with figures firing over like Scud missiles over in Gaza. So, leading on from this, right, there's a few key contributors, supporters, retweeters, right, across the GAA and sporting spectrum. The Bowl, Kevin Mulcahy down in Cork, Jonathan Higgins, Maurice Brosnan, Tommy Rooney, Edwin McGreal, Dennis Hurley. We want to Dave at Dub Match Tracker. I know is hanging up his pen and pencil after all these years. That was an extraordinary service to the GA community, particularly in Dublin, and the sacrifice that he put in to go to all those bloody matches is extraordinary. So we wish him well in his retirement onto another sabbatical. He was good with you and on the grassroots many moons ago. And,
massive retweeter of this and grassroots,
yeah, big stuff. And look at the lads down the Kildare unofficial 365, the Mayo GA blog, Mayo Club 51, the old John Gillespie, Anthony Malloy, Mick Gerard, James Rolson, Monaghan GA supporters who we massively love. Always great crack for a session. Armagh, the Armagh Supporters Club, as in our album. Tyrone, unofficial. The most common GAA legends: Brian MacDonald, Four Masters, Donegal, Crossmaglen, Loud and Proud, Tony Bambrick, Dave Morris, Sean Murphy, Colleen Duffy, and Don Fowle. Huge thanks extended to the whole lot of them. And the support has been massively appreciated. So, Professor, we'll leave the last word to you. Myself and yourself, what you think I said on the very first show. Many moons ago when Ardscoil Reach, we actually sat beside each other and we spent all day, every day talking absolute shite about GAA. It's great to see that 25 years later we've moved on with our lives, and matured so well and progressed. Talk about Back to the Future. But listen, here we are. It's been an absolute privilege. Great old crack. It's always made for a few talking points, and no one's taken a hit out on you just yet, like Salman Rushdie. You'd be attacked at some bloody conference somewhere. So long may that continue. Last word to yourself.
Yeah, just enjoyed it. So enjoyed it. Hard work, but enjoyed it. And I think, look, yeah, hopefully we've shown a few different ways of looking at the world of football. We will have one more show in the next week or two with the general stats, how it works. But yeah, no, look, it's good. I suppose, look, ultimately, yeah, I'm happy that we called the big games more or less spot on. Certainly the last three when we had all the data compiled. I suppose otherwise we'd have to get off the screen.
And just in case, folks, you might have missed the immortalized words of JJ Okocha. Well, James, we couldn't let the moment pass without giving JJ Okocha a big thank you as well.
Well, I think the Dubs thought we were setting up Clifford for JJ Okocha, but they tried it on the wrong man. But they got away with it in the end.
Thank you to everyone who has tuned in and soldiered with us. Hopefully there's plenty of nuggets in that, and we will see you all very soon. Keep her lit. All the best.